with the Batman coming out in under a month, I thought it was about time to just go ahead and look back at The Batman from 2004, the animated series of the same name again. And at first I thought about just ranking every episode of the show, but I thought it would be more fun and I would represent more episodes more fairly if I just did it by season. So we're beginning with season 1, and season 1 is definitely the season of this show I have seen the most, bar none, and there are 13 episodes per season, but for this season there are going to be 12 entries because the finale, the 2 last episodes, are basically a 2-part finale. Therefore, 12 entries. With all that being said, let's go ahead and jump into this list.
How'd you do that? I'm the Batman.
In last place, the Big Dummy, the Ventriloquist, and Scarface are just 2 characters that really have never appealed to me. I didn't love where this episode went, still not a terrible episode. The season does not contain an awful episode, obviously with this coming in at number 2.
Do something! Dummy.
Next, we have the introduction episode for none other than the Penguin himself, Call of the Cobblepot. Overall, I do like the Penguin in the show. He's voiced by Tom Kenny, none other than SpongeBob himself.
We have a lot in common, you and I. We're young, rich, and handsome.
I don't think I've heard of...
I've been abroad.
I enjoyed the final confrontation between Batman and Penguin. I thought the Kabuki twins were pretty cool. I just think there's better Penguin episodes. I like the stuff between Penguin and Alfred, but that gets better throughout the show as well. So, it's a good start to Penguin's character, but he has better stuff upcoming. And he has also worse stuff upcoming. We'll get to that in the future.
Joker? I'm the Batman.
You see, the thing is, you're not.
Now number 10, the first Joker episode out of 3 on this list, Topsy-Turvy. So the whole concept of this episode is that Joker is trying to get revenge on everyone that has, quote, did him wrong by turning them into playing cards. Which is fun enough, but I gotta say, in this episode, I just love Joker's vehicle. I love the car he's driving around in this thing. I love the chase scene between him and Batman. The concept is very weird, but it's also very dark. It works perfectly for Joker in a show like this.
Adley, how many times do I have to tell you? I hate macaroni and cheese! Oh, how I've wanted to deck all of you!
His entire plan is to turn those whom he chooses into playing cards and dump them into the river. And I also love that it's at this point in the season that Bennett specifically is starting to side with Batman rather than see him as the enemy. You see that develop throughout the season, but this is maybe the height of it before everything goes downhill.
Time to see who is the better bat.
At number 9, I have The Man Who Would Be Bat. The first episode with Man-Bat, really the only episode where he's the only primary villain. Also his best episode, which he doesn't have much competition in that department. Man-Bat is really weird with the goo he spits up in this episode, but it's something that really adds to his arsenal, makes him more of a threat, and adds to this episode in a weird way. I also like the animation when Man-Bat is using his echolocation. I don't know why I love how he's seeing things, not seeing things, he's hearing things. I like how it goes to black and white. I really like the animation in this episode.
Let's see how your sonar likes the look of this.
And much like Topsy-Turvy, I love the Detective Ian and Bennett stuff, hunting down Batman, and I said Topsy-Turvy is probably the peak of Bennett's realization, but this is where it really starts to push at the forefront of his character, where he's seeing Batman as a hero, because that's what he is, which Bennett is one of the best characters in this season. I think he gets overlooked too much. And a major reason Bennett really starts to believe that is because Batman saves his life in this episode. It's just kind of little moments like that and character progression that carries over throughout the season that makes this show special to me, especially the first and second season.
Now stand aside, so we may complete our business with her. The lady leaves with me.
Number 8, The Cat and the Bat. I really like Catwoman in this episode. The chase scene between Batman and Catwoman is great, as chase scenes between those two typically are. I like that Catwoman steals his utility belt. I like her playing around with it and trying to figure everything out. Not a big fan of the clan stuff, so that's what drops this episode down a bit for me. I've got to say I love Catwoman's design though. It's possibly my favorite villain design in the show. I just love her with the goggles and the all black suit. It looks so great. The second and final Penguin episode of season 1, Bird of Prey. This is kind of a comedic episode.
You should learn to play nice, Penguin. Why? I hate your guts!
A lot of the comedy really works for me. Tom Kenny as Penguin can just pull off comedy and being a dick both in the show. He's great. Penguin basically has Alfred hostage again, much like he did in his first episode, except this time, instead of at Cobblepot Manor, it's at Wayne Manor, so switching things up a little bit. By far the most interesting part of this episode, though, of course, is the Batman Bruce Wayne stuff. Bruce and Batman having to act like they're in the same place at the same time, even though, lo and behold, they're the same person, obviously. That kind of stuff's always fun if it's handled right, and I thought it was handled pretty freaking well in this episode. I don't know how many hot takes you guys think I've already had in this video, but maybe this will be my hottest take, I'm not sure. Number 6, Q&A. I know this is an episode that's very divisive. Usually people love it or they hate it. I'm pretty in between on it. I really enjoy this episode quite a bit. It kind of reminds me of a Riddler episode without the Riddler, which I guess Cluemaster is kind of just a D-grade Riddler. He's all about trying to outsmart Batman. That's the whole concept of this episode. I just always find that intriguing. That's why I really love the Riddler as a character. I don't like Cluemaster as much as the Riddler. The Broccoli Children thing is really weird, but the actual game show stuff, I enjoy. This is a villain that was obsessive with being smart, much like the Riddler. So what I'm saying is, this is a discount Riddler episode. They were prepping us for season 2 when the Riddler made his triumphant debut. So if you hate this episode, it's really just because you don't like the Broccoli Children. Don't lie.
I shall give you, the Batman, one chance to save their cheating lives. A bonus round.
Well, we made it to the top 5. And number 5 is the first episode of this show, The Bat and the Belfry. Gotta show it some props for being the first episode. Of course they did Joker for the first episode, the first Joker episode of the show, the first episode of the show overall. Kevin Michael Richardson is fantastic. I like how much of the Joker's artillery, how much of his arsenal you get to see. The Jack in the Box is freaking great. He is looking like a maniac. This is the craziest Joker ever looks. Like after this, once this design starts to change up, he starts to look more like traditional Joker. But this first episode, he definitely looks crazy, and I love it. I like the straitjacket. I like everything. I like that he showed up to Arkham. That's the first place Joker was spotted in Gotham. Freaking Arkham Asylum. Makes sense to me.
You really know how to spoil a coming out party. How do you expect me to spread mirth and whimsy without a proper hideout?
This episode sets up Batman as a vigilante throughout this season and the cat and mouse chase that ensues between Ethan Bennett, Detective Yin, and Batman throughout this season. It all builds from here. It took this episode to set it up. Joker's great. Kevin Michael Richardson. The animation is beautiful. It was a great start to a great show.
Lights out, Batman.
At number 4, we have Traction, the first episode and only episode with Bane. This is a very good episode and makes it all that more disappointing that Bane was not in any more episodes of the show, featured in any more episodes, I should say. It was a display of Batman's endurance, intelligence, and will. Bane is really the first foe that has challenged Batman on such a physical level. The fight scenes are great, everything with the GCPD is great. And the thing I have to touch on with this episode is Batman and Alfred. That fatherly son connection between them you get to see on display in this episode. Alfred has to help Bruce through an emotional defeat, physical defeat, because he gets his ass whipped. And it's great. It's great seeing things like that.
I left you with some dignity last time, but now I will unmask you, then break the rest of your bones.
I said earlier that maybe Q&A is my hottest take. Maybe this is my hottest take. The big heat in the top 3. I can't really explain why I like this episode so much. Firefly looks freaking awesome. I like the detective elements throughout. I like the chase scene at the end between Batman and Firefly. That is the superior Fly chase scene in this season. It's better than the Man-Bat one. This is probably the best Firefly episode. It's kind of disappointing that we didn't get more of him because he really was a great villain in this episode, I think. I love the animation. A lot of even Firefly's quips, they are good, they are funny. He has good one-liners in this episode. It's just an entertaining watch all the way through.
I know about GothCorp. What, is that a rock band or something?
And runner-up is the Big Chill. They got the Big Dummy, the Big Heat, and the Big Chill. I wonder if these guys, the creators of the show, were fans of the Big Lebowski or something like that. Or if they're just sticking with the theme, because they got the Bat and the Belfry. That's the first episode. That has two of these. They are telling you what is up from the beginning.
The Batman. I thought you would never arrive.
Anyway, The Big Chill. This is a episode that just carries a lot of nostalgia with me because I used to own this disc, this DVD that only had this, the Big Heat, or no, it didn't have the Big Heat. Had this, the Cat and the Bat, and The Man Who Would Be Bat. Only those 3 episodes, and this was by far the episode I watched the most because I love Mr. Freeze. I still love Mr. Freeze.
Mr. Freeze, you do not have permission.
This version is obviously no Batman the Animated Series, but it wasn't trying to be. That doesn't take away from this episode for me. I love the animation. It's beautiful in this. I love the atmosphere in this episode. The sound design. There's a lot that sticks out to me. Anytime Mr. Freeze freezes something, it just looks beautiful. They reinvented the Titanic at the beginning of this. They're throwing movie references out. Or real world events, either one. Clancy Brown as Mr. Freeze is phenomenal. I love the red eyes for Freeze. I still like this design, even if the character itself is no Batman the Animated Series. Mr. Freeze, this version, it still fits for this show. It fits well. I love the white bat suit at the end. I like the stow suit that Batman gets. The cold suit, the ice suit, whatever you want to call it. I love how the Batmobile is utilized in this episode. Just everything about this episode I really do enjoy. Also, the scene when Yin and Bennett show up while Batman is frozen, and Yin goes to unmask him and Bennett says no. He's showing Batman respect. Another reason I love Ethan Bennett as a character. He is so great in this season. And number 1, of course, the rubber face of comedy / the clay face of tragedy. For anyone that's seen the Batman, I've been hinting at this whole video, I'm sure you can tell. Ethan Bennett was the MVP of this season. For me. I love the progression that he had, and then it ended with tragedy. It was a perfect bookend to this season for his character. I guess I should talk about the putty that Joker was using.
Drop it, or Laughing Boy gets it. You don't know what this stuff does to humans.
Alls I know is it's some kind of chemical makeup that the Joker made who knows where. Probably at an abandoned carnival or some shit. It's probably just bad cotton candy mixed with funnel cake grease. But it was basically silly putty. He could just change it into everything. He could use this on anything though. He could use it on works of art and just mold it into whatever he wanted. He was having a blast. Then along came Detective Yin and Ethan Bennett, and as I mentioned earlier, tragedy struck. The Joker used it on Bennett, and that's how Ethan Bennett becomes Clayface. And I think that Ethan Bennett may be my favorite Clayface ever. Matt Hagen probably still has a slight edge for him just because I have more of a connection to Batman the Animated Series in this show, which is kind of weird because this was my first Batman show. But nonetheless, Clayface is one of the best villains in the show, and it's largely due to this arc. And I wish this would have continued more so after season 2. I wish this was a thing in every season. I like how the Joker was involved with Clayface's creation.
You know what separates the freaks from the normals? Just one rotten day. Ever had a really rotten day, Batman?
These are 2 very emotional episodes, very heavy, focusing on 2 of the biggest villains in the show. The first is, of course, Joker, and the second is a Clayface episode. I will say, if I had to rank the 2 of them, I'd probably give Clayface a Tragedy the slight edge, just because it is very emotional. You can't help but feel bad for Bennett, and there's a lot of depth. You're heartbroken for Bruce because they were childhood friends, and just seeing what it is really doing to Bennett mentally, it's hard to watch at times, honestly. It's a cartoon, but who cares? It's still, there's a lot of emotional depth. The writing is very good. So that was my ranking for all the Batman Season 1 episodes. Let me know yours down in the comments below. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe if you enjoyed the video. Hope you have a wonderful day, and I will see you guys next time.